The night before the National Robotics Championship, I did the unthinkable. I smashed my masterpiece to pieces and announced my withdrawal from the competition. Everyone called me a fraud, claiming I was too scared to face the heat. The internet trolls were relentless, tearing my reputation to shreds. Only Gabriel Thorne, the so-called golden boy of Silicon Valley, played the saint. I believe in Leo Reed's talent. He is the only rival I truly respect. Whatever he's going through, I hope he comes back to prove himself, he told the cameras. In my past life, my robot had been an exact replica of his. No matter how I tried to prove he had stolen my designs, the world turned against me. He played the victim with such grace, saying, "It's fine. Leo can have this design. I'm capable of building something even better." His millions of fans hunted me down online. No one believed that I was the original creator. Driven by spite, I tried to build a new robot overnight. But the power core I used was tampered with, and it exploded, causing severe brain damage. I ended up in the ICU that very night. The public cheered, saying I got exactly what I deserved for being a thief. That same night, my girlfriend signed the papers to stop my life support. Until the moment I died, I couldn't understand how he got my data. I didn't know that my own girlfriend had been sleeping with him the whole time. Then I opened my eyes. I was back on the day before the championship. "Leo, this biomimetic movement design is insane. We're definitely taking home the $5 million prize this year." Wyatt Banks's excited voice pulled me back to reality. I stared at the man-sized robot in front of me and felt a cold shiver run down my spine. "I'm going to submit the data to the portal right now. Then we just wait for tomorrow's live demo." Wyatt started tapping away at his laptop, a huge grin on his face. "Stop," I shouted, my voice cracking as I grabbed his arm. "Wait, I have a better idea." My hands were shaking as I opened my own laptop. I navigated to Gabriel Thorne's social media page and saw his latest post. It was a video demonstration of his robot. It was identical to mine. Every single parameter was a mirror image. "What the hell? I saw Gabriel's robot this afternoon, and it looked nothing like this." Wyatt gasped, leaning over my shoulder. "How did that snake steal our work so fast?" I bit my lip so hard I tasted blood. In my previous life, I had seen Gabriel's different design earlier that day too, which made me lower my guard. I only realized his robot was a clone of mine 30 minutes before the submission deadline. Back then, I had desperately reported him to the organizers and posted my build logs online. But the committee didn't believe me, and Gabriel's fanatical followers swarmed my comments. "Leo the Leech is at it again, trying to claim Gabriel's genius as his own. Have you no shame? Gabriel posted his data first. How dare you fake your timestamps to frame him?" The verbal abuse was a tidal wave that nearly drowned me. In a fit of desperation, I had stayed up all night to modify my bot, hoping to prove my worth on stage. But during the live demo, Gabriel's robot was, once again, exactly like my new version. The audience mocked me, throwing water bottles and trash while I stood frozen on stage. Refusing to give up, I tried to force my robot to perform a complex maneuver. That's when the explosion happened, sending me straight to the brink of death. Without me in the way, Gabriel won the championship easily. He got the prize money and was scouted by a top-tier tech mogul. His future was set. While I lay dying, the competition officials claimed they found explosive materials in my robot. They told the press I was a domestic terrorist trying to blow up the venue. When that statement hit the news, I was expelled. My parents were doxxed and harassed. People sent funeral wreaths to their house and smeared red paint on their door. The night I was hospitalized, my girlfriend signed my death warrant. She told the world I didn't make it through surgery. The internet celebrated my passing. My parents, broken by the grief and the shame, took their own lives shortly after. As a ghost, I watched them die. My rage was so cold, so deep, that I refused to move on. And then I woke up. I was back. This time, I will find the truth. I will clear my name and make Gabriel Thorne pay for every single thing he did. "Leo, we still have time to change the design. This isn't just about the money. The winner gets a full scholarship and a spot in the elite labs. We can't just quit," Wyatt said, his face pale after the organizers ignored our complaint. "I'll do the modifications myself." "Wyatt, you keep talking to the officials," I said firmly. This time, I didn't trust anyone, not even my best friend. In my last life, my girlfriend, Ivy Rivers, had stayed by my side the whole night I worked. Later, I saw her leaning into Gabriel's arms. There was no doubt about it. She was the one feeding him my data. But Ivy didn't know the first thing about coding or mechanical engineering. Even if she gave him the files, she couldn't explain the core logic of the operating system. Gabriel and I had been rivals since freshman year. I was always his shadow. Every idea I had, he somehow executed first. I never even walked on the same side of the street as him. There was no way he could have physically seen my progress. So how did his code match mine line for line? Even after being reborn, I couldn't wrap my head around it. Thinking of Ivy made my heart ache. We were childhood sweethearts. We were planning a life together. And yet, at the most critical moment of my life, she pushed me into the abyss. I slapped myself hard across the face to snap out of it. I had work to do. I began tearing the robot apart, rewriting the neural networks from scratch. When I first designed this bot, I had an upgraded version in mind. I hadn't used it because the performance was slightly unstable. I had been confident that the conservative version was enough to win. But now I had to gamble everything. An hour later, I stared at the new code and took a shaky breath. I was alone in the lab. Unless Gabriel was a literal god, there was no way he could know what I just did. I wiped the sweat from my forehead. Just as I was about to upload the new parameters, Wyatt burst through the door. Leo. Gabriel just updated his public project files. Look. My heart dropped. I snatched the laptop and watched the new video. No way. I whispered. The data Gabriel just uploaded was the exact same unstable upgrade I had finished minutes ago. I watched the video of his robot moving with fluid, lifelike precision. The comments were already flooded with praise. Gabriel had posted a status update. I thought my first version was enough to win. But looking at the competition, I decided to push the limits. It's a bit unstable, but if I can get some feedback from the pros, it's worth the risk. Cold sweat poured down my back. The core of this upgrade was a specific algorithm I had dreamed about. I treated that code like a gift from heaven. No one else could have known it. Was Gabriel using a world-class hacker? Was he watching me through my own webcam? I had a terrifying feeling that the truth was even darker than that. Leo, what do we do? The whole internet is calling for your head, Wyatt said, his voice trembling. I stared at my phone screen. Gabriel's fans were coming for me like a pack of wolves. Look at this loser. Can't even copy properly anymore, can you? Leo has been obsessed with Gabriel for years. But a rat will always be a rat. You'll never catch up to a god. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. It's fine. I have another robot. I'll use that one for the entry. I prepared to lock myself in the lab again. Just then my phone buzzed. It was Ivy. I had told her specifically not to call me before the competition. I stared at her name on the screen with cold eyes and blocked her number immediately. I don't believe he can read my mind for this one too, I told Wyatt. With nothing left to lose, I dragged a heavy crate from the back of the room. I cut all network connections to the lab. I made sure no hacker could see what I was doing. I carefully pulled out a spider-like drone. This model was actually more advanced than the humanoid one. It was designed for search and rescue in extreme environments. It was a prototype I had never shown a soul. 3 hours later, the assembly was complete. I tuned the sensors and checked the legs. It was a beautiful, terrifying piece of machinery. It could shift into 18 different forms to navigate any terrain. There was no way Gabriel Thorne knew about this. I took a deep breath and started the local upload. Suddenly, the computer lagged. The loading icon spun slowly. A terrible premonition gripped my chest. As soon as my upload finished, I checked Gabriel's profile. His entry had changed. It was now a spider-shaped robot. I scrolled through the specs. Every joint, every sensor, every motor was identical to mine. And his timestamp was exactly 1 minute before mine. Hey everyone. I realized there are too many humanoids this year. I decided to go with my hex spider design instead. If you guys like it, I might release a hobbyist model soon. I watched his video and felt a roar of fury. I swept everything off my desk in a blind rage. How is this happening? I screamed. I was on the verge of a total mental breakdown. Wyatt ran back in and saw the spider bot on the floor. He understood instantly. Is it the committee? Are they giving him your files in real time? He asked. I stood there, surrounded by a dark, suffocating energy. There were only 2 hours left until the final submission deadline. It was impossible to build a third robot. I'm calling the organizers, I hissed. I reached for my phone and saw 100 missed calls from Ivy. Since I blocked her, she had used someone else's phone to send a text. Leo, I love you. My love for you is like a shadow. Where you go, I go. If you vanish, I cease to exist. Something clicked in my brain. A memory flashed by, but I couldn't quite catch it. I shook my head and dialed the competition hotline. I demanded an explanation. The official on the line sounded bored. Mr. Reed, this competition is sponsored by the National Academy of Sciences. The board is led by 2 Nobel laureates. We don't have backdoors for students. Especially not for. The voice turned mocking. Let's be honest. Your school isn't exactly prestigious. You don't have the kind of pull to bribe an academician. Instead of throwing dirt on your peers, maybe you should focus on your own lack of talent. The line went dead. They wouldn't even listen to me. Leo, it's getting worse. Wyatt showed me his phone. The top trending hashtag was hashtag Leo Reed the Thief. How shameless can you be? Copying him in real time. Kick him out. Gabriel must have a mole in his camp. How else is this guy stealing designs so fast? Gabriel had posted another kind message. True genius often thinks alike. Maybe Leo and I are just on the same wavelength. It's fine. I'll let him have this spider design. I'll compete with something else. Underneath, his fans were swooning. Gabriel is such a saint. He's so generous to a thief. Even if you give a beggar a Ferrari, he won't know how to drive it. Leo is pathetic. This is disgusting. Someone should call the cops on this parasite. I felt my blood running cold. My mind was racing. Was I supposed to give up? Or was I going to walk right into the same trap as last time? No. I wouldn't accept this. There had to be something I was missing. In my state of extreme anger, my mind became unnaturally sharp. I replayed every memory of Gabriel Thorne. Before I met him, I was the undisputed prodigy. But once he arrived at my university, my light faded. He always seemed one step ahead of me. He knew what I was thinking before I even said it. A spark lit up in my head. Wyatt, do you believe two people can have the exact same brain waves? Wyatt looked at me like I'd lost it. No way. Even identical twins have different patterns. It's scientifically impossible. If I gave you a robot you were perfectly familiar with, what's the fastest you could build a new one? I asked. Wyatt thought about it seriously. Leo, I'm good, but I'm not you. If I had all the parts ready, assembly and calibration would take at least half a day. These aren't Lego sets. You can't just copy-paste a physical machine in minutes. I started to laugh. The sound was loud and a little bit crazed. You're right. Building from scratch takes hours. There's no way two identical machines can appear within 1 minute of each other. It defies the laws of physics. I stared at the two robots in my lab. My eyes were burning with a wild intensity. I dragged the spider-bot under the heavy industrial press. My finger hovered over the button. I found your weakness, you bastard, I whispered. The heavy pneumatic cylinder of the industrial press let out a low, predatory hiss. Leo, stop. What the hell are you doing? Wyatt screamed, lunging across the work table to grab my wrist. That spider-bot is 3 months of non-stop work. If you crush it, we have literally nothing left for the presentation tomorrow. I didn't answer him right away. My eyes remained fixed on the glowing hydraulic pressure gauge. 10 minutes ago, I was on the brink of losing my sanity. But in this exact second, my mind was colder and clearer than it had ever been across 2 lifetimes. Think, Leo. Think through the physics. A physical prototype cannot be manufactured, calibrated, wired, and test-driven within 60 seconds of a digital blueprint being finalized. It is physically impossible. Even with state-of-the-art 5-axis CNC milling and multi-laser metal sintering, the thermal cooling cycles alone take hours. Yet Gabriel had published a video of the physical spider-bot walking, shifting its joints, and matching my exact servo tolerances 60 seconds before I even hit upload on the local network. How? There was only one logical explanation in the entire universe. Gabriel didn't copy the file from my laptop. He didn't hack my router. He didn't steal the machine after I built it. He built it while I was designing it in my head. Wyatt, I said, my voice dropping to a deadly whisper. Do you remember the university mandatory health checkup during sophomore year? The one funded by the Thorne Biomedical Foundation. Wyatt blinked, caught off guard. Of the neurological screening for the campus grant? Yeah, what about it? They gave us a contrast injection before the functional MRI. They claimed it was a biocompatible tracer for cognitive mapping. I dropped the industrial press control lever and reached behind my neck. My fingers dug deep into the soft tissue just below the base of my skull, right over the C2 vertebra. There. A tiny, rice grain-sized nodule, completely painless, nestled deep against the nerve cluster. For 3 years, I had assumed it was just a harmless lymph node, or a bit of scar tissue from an old childhood fall. It wasn't scar tissue. It was an active biosynthetic synaptic bridge, a neural telemetry transceiver. Every time I visualized a circuit diagram, every time I mentally calculated gear ratios, every time my motor cortex sent signals to my fingers to type lines of code, the transceiver translated the synaptic firing patterns into clean digital telemetry. The data wasn't leaving through the lab's Wi-Fi. It was transmitting through ultra-wideband radio frequencies directly from my central nervous system to a receiver within a 100-meter radius, and who lived in the apartment building across the street, who was always within range, pretending to be the loving, devoted girlfriend? Ivy Rivers. Leo, your nose is bleeding, Wyatt said, his voice trembling as he pointed at my face. I wiped the warm crimson from my upper lip with the back of my hand. I looked at the red smear on my skin and began to smile. Wyatt, I murmured, get the high-frequency electromagnetic pulse wand from the microwave testing rig, and bring me the heavy sledgehammer. Leo, what are you going to do? I'm going to give Gabriel Thorne exactly what he wants, I said, my voice dripping with venom. I'm going to give him my masterpiece. At 11:30 p.m., 30 minutes before the official registration portal closed, I initiated a live video stream on my personal social media account. I didn't use any studio lighting. I didn't set up a script. I positioned the camera directly in front of the hydraulic press. On the steel bed lay both the humanoid robot and the hex spider prototype. Within 30 seconds, thanks to Gabriel's trolls actively monitoring my feed, the viewer count skyrocketed from 0 to 50,000. The comment section immediately erupted with vitriol. Look at the thief. Going live to cry. Are you going to apologize to Gabriel, you pathetic leech? Disgrace to the engineering department. Drop out already. I stood in front of the camera, looking haggard, my hair disheveled, my eyes bloodshot, perfectly playing the part of a broken, humiliated failure. To the National Robotics Championship committee, I said, my voice cracking with theatrical despair. To Gabriel Thorne, and to everyone watching. I took a deep, trembling breath. I admit it. I can't beat him. Every time I think I've reached the peak of innovation, Gabriel proves that he is 5 steps ahead of me. His genius is unnatural. It's suffocating. I reached out and hit the manual override on the hydraulic press. Crunch. The 8-ton piston slammed down into the humanoid chassis. Titanium rods bent like plastic straws. Microcontrollers shattered into glittering dust. Capacitors ruptured with bright, popping sparks. The chat went completely silent for 3 full seconds before exploding into a frenzy of question marks. I didn't stop. I picked up the 20-pound steel sledgehammer from the floor and swung it with all my might into the hex spider. Bang. The composite carbon fiber legs snapped. The optical sensors were pulverized into gray powder. Bang, bang, bang. I smashed the machines until my hands were blistered, until the floor was covered in jagged metal shards and leaking lithium-ion electrolyte fluid. Breathing heavily, I leaned over the camera, my face inches from the lens. I am officially withdrawing from the National Championship, I rasped, letting a wild, defeated look consume my eyes. I will never build another robot as long as I live. Gabriel, you win. You took everything. I cut the feed. The screen went black. Wyatt stood in the corner of the lab, his jaw slack, staring at the $500,000 worth of crushed machinery on the floor. Leo, Wyatt whispered. Tell me you have a plan. Please tell me you haven't actually lost your mind. I stood up straight. The manic, defeated look vanished from my face instantly, replaced by a cold, calculating stillness. Wyatt locked the reinforced steel blast doors. Cut the main circuit breaker to the building. Turn on the battery-powered Faraday cage in the basement vault. I walked over to the workbench, picked up a sterile scalpel, and doused the blade in medical alcohol. We have exactly 12 hours before the opening ceremony, I said, handing Wyatt the scalpel and a pair of surgical forceps. First, you're going to cut this parasite out of my neck. Then, we are going to build the machine that will send Gabriel Thorne to federal prison. The surgery took 20 agonizing minutes. Without local anesthesia, the pain of the scalpel cutting into the muscle beneath my skull was blinding. But I didn't make a sound. I bit down on a rolled-up leather strap, sweat drenching my clothes, focusing every ounce of my will on the memory of my previous death, the cold ICU room, the sound of the ventilator shutting down, and Ivy's voice whispering that I was just a stepping stone. Compared to that cold betrayal, physical pain was nothing. I got it, Wyatt breathed, his hands shaking violently as he dropped a tiny, blood-covered silicon capsule into a glass petri dish. The capsule was no larger than a grain of rice, wrapped in a micromesh of synthetic neural filaments. A microscopic gold antenna pulsed with a faint, rhythmic blue light every 3 seconds. What is this thing? Wyatt asked, staring at it in horror. A synaptic mirror tap, I said, wrapping a tight sterile bandage around my neck. Patented by Thorne Neurotech as a theoretical prosthesis for paralyzed patients. But Gabriel's father used me as an unauthorized human test subject. Every time my brain fired an engineering solution, the tap broadcast the raw schematic to their automated fabrication lab. Those sick bastards. Wyatt muttered, his fists clenching. Let's smash it. With the hammer right now. No, I stopped him. If we destroy it, Gabriel will know we found it. He'll realize the game is up and go on the defensive. I picked up the petri dish and connected the microcapsule to an external signal generator via 2 fine copper probes. We aren't going to destroy it, I said, a dark grin spreading across my face. We are going to feed it a ghost. For the next 2 hours, I didn't use a keyboard. I used a custom waveform synthesizer to simulate human brainwave patterns, specifically, the neural frequency of a desperate, sleep-deprived engineer attempting a desperate, last-ditch miracle build. In the simulated data stream, I fed the transceiver a complete, revolutionary set of blueprints for an entirely new machine, the Prometheus core. On paper, the Prometheus core was an engineering marvel that defied contemporary physics. It utilized an ultra-high-density electromagnetic induction loop to generate instantaneous torque, coupled with a biomimetic neural network capable of predicting human movement with zero latency. It looked like the pinnacle of human robotics, a machine capable of winning every defense contract, every venture capital round, and every academic award on Earth. Except for one detail. A fatal, invisible mathematical paradox buried deep inside the core control algorithm. The algorithm lacked a dampening function for harmonic resonance. At normal operating speeds, the machine would perform flawlessly, moving with breathtaking, godlike agility. But the moment the operator attempted to push the system past 95% output, which Gabriel would inevitably do to show off during the grand finale, the magnetic field inside the power cell would invert, triggering an irreversible thermal runaway loop. The battery wouldn't just fail. It would melt the internal control board, lock the mechanical joints into an uncontrollable spasm, and project the raw, unencrypted diagnostic logs, including the origin IP addresses of the neural feed, directly onto any connected broadcast network. Leo, Wyatt whispered as he watched the synthesized waveforms pulse through the copper wires into the transceiver. Are you sure Gabriel's automated lab will build it? I looked at the clock. It was 3 a.m. Gabriel is an empty vessel, I said coldly. He has built his entire reputation on stealing my insights. He hasn't written a single original line of code in for years. When his server receives a design of this caliber, his greed won't allow him to ignore it. Sure enough, 20 minutes later, Wyatt's phone vibrated. A push notification from the National Robotics Championship official portal flashed on the screen. Contestant Gabriel Thorne has updated his final competition entry. Project Prometheus, Next-Gen Bipedal Combat and Rescue Unit. Underneath the announcement, Gabriel had already posted a press release. In response to Leo Reed's tragic breakdown and withdrawal, I worked through the night to complete a prototype I have spent 3 years developing in secret. I dedicate this breakthrough to the spirit of scientific resilience. See you all at the arena. I looked at the screen and let out a long, quiet exhale. He swallowed the hook, I said. Now Wyatt, let's build our real entry. Our real entry? Wyatt looked around the bare, ransacked lab. With what? We have no parts, no chassis, and 8 hours left. I walked over to the corner of the basement vault and pulled off an old, dust-covered canvas tarp. Underneath sat a rough, unpainted, purely analog mechanical skeleton made entirely of salvaged steel tubing, aircraft-grade hydraulic valves, and a physical gear-and-chain transmission system. No microchips. No wireless antennas. No digital operating system. It was an entirely mechanical automaton powered by a compressed nitrogen pneumatic engine. A machine designed using 19th century clockwork, mathematics, and raw kinetic physics. He can tap my brainwaves for digital code, I said, picking up a heavy steel wrench. He can't steal what is built with pure, unyielding iron. The morning sun broke over the Silicon Valley Convention Center, bathing the colossal glass dome in a blinding, golden glare. Over 10,000 spectators packed the indoor arena. 500 television networks, venture capital syndicates, and tech publications were broadcasting live to an estimated global audience of 40 million people. On the VIP stage sat the elite panel of judges, Dr. Julian Vance, the head of the National Academy of Sciences, General Thomas Marcus of the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, and several multi-billionaire tech luminaries. In the center of the exhibition floor stood Gabriel Thorne. He looked immaculate. Dressed in a bespoke charcoal designer suit, his golden hair styled to perfection, he smiled warmly at the cameras, waving to the throngs of adoring fans chanting his name from the stands. Beside him stood Ivy Rivers, wearing a sparkling designer dress, holding a tablet displaying Thorne Tech's promotional stock ticker. And behind them, resting on a pedestal under a white silk drape, was the Prometheus unit. Even under the cloth, the sleek, menacing silhouette of the humanoid machine looked like something pulled out of a science fiction blockbuster. Gabriel, give us a word, a reporter from TechCrunch shouted, thrusting a microphone over the security barrier. Gabriel smiled with practiced humility. I just hope today's demonstration shows the world that true innovation requires discipline and integrity, Gabriel said smoothly, casting a sorrowful look toward the empty contestant booth marked Leo Reed, withdrawn. It breaks my heart that my former classmate Leo chose to destroy his own work, rather than face the judges. I pray he gets the psychological help he desperately needs. Ivy leaned in, her voice dripping with sweet sorrow for the broadcast. Leo has always been unstable. As his former partner, I tried to guide him, but his jealousy of Gabriel consumed him. I'm just glad the world will finally see who the real genius is. The crowd erupted in supportive applause. What a gentleman. Gabriel is too kind to that psycho. Throw Leo in prison if he ever shows his face. Up on the judge's podium, Dr. Julian Vance leaned into his microphone, his voice booming through the arena's surround sound audio system. Ladies and gentlemen, due to the unfortunate withdrawal of several regional contestants, we will proceed directly to the final exhibition match. Contestant Gabriel Thorne, please unveil your entry and begin the live operational trial. Gabriel nodded graciously. He grasped the edge of the silk drape and pulled it back with a dramatic flourish. The audience gasped in unison. The Prometheus robot stood nearly 7 feet tall. Its chassis was constructed from mirror-polished black titanium alloy, with glowing blue luminescent veins running along its carbon fiber muscle fibers. Its core pulsed with a rhythmic, mesmerizing hum that sounded like a miniature jet engine. Initiating autonomous neural sync mode, Gabriel announced, tapping the controls on his custom gold-plated tablet. The robot's optical sensors flared to life with an intense, crystalline violet glare. It stepped off the pedestal with a grace that looked terrifyingly human. It performed a series of rapid backflips, landed with zero sound on the concrete floor, and transitioned into an intricate, fluid martial arts kata at 3 times the speed of an Olympic athlete. The judges stood up from their seats, their faces filled with sheer shock. Magnificent, General Marcus whispered, his eyes wide. The reaction speed, the zero-point kinetic distribution. This is 20 years ahead of anything DARPA has in development. $5 million doesn't begin to cover this, Dr. Vance proclaimed into the microphone. Gabriel Thorne, you have single-handedly rewritten the future of robotics. Gabriel stood in the center of the arena, basking in the deafening standing ovation of 10,000 people, his arms raised high like a Roman emperor. Thank you, Gabriel shouted into his lapel mic, his eyes shining with absolute arrogance. And now for the grand finale. I will demonstrate the Prometheus core operating at maximum overclocked capacity, 100% kinetic output. Wait. A voice cut through the roar of the arena. It wasn't loud. It wasn't amplified by the stadium's primary speakers. It was a voice coming from the competitor's tunnel, harsh, raspy, and amplified by a simple low-tech bullhorn. The music stuttered. The cameras turned away from Gabriel, panning toward the dark mouth of the tunnel. Footsteps echoed across the concrete. Clank, hiss, clank, hiss. Out of the shadows emerged Wyatt Banks, pushing a heavy steel trolley, and walking beside him, wearing oil-stained denim, his neck wrapped in thick white bandages, was me. The arena went completely dead silent for 2 seconds before erupting into a cacophony of shouts, boos, and aggressive jeers. Leo Reed. What is that fraud doing here? Security. Throw him out. He withdrew last night. Ivy's face turned stark white. Her grip on her tablet tightened so hard her knuckles turned blue. She leaned toward Gabriel, whispering frantically, Gabriel, how is he here? You said he had a complete nervous breakdown. Gabriel's eyes narrowed, but his charming smile remained firmly plastered on his face. He held up a hand to calm the furious crowd. Leo, Gabriel said through his microphone, his tone full of patronizing pity, I didn't expect to see you here. If you came to watch the demonstration, there is an open seat in the back row, but the competition floor is for registered finalists only. Dr. Julian Vance frowned from the judge's table, his voice booming with icy authority. Security personnel, remove this individual immediately. Mr. Reed forfeited his credentials when he published his withdrawal notice. Check the official rulebook, section 14, clause B, I said, raising my bullhorn. My voice was calm, steady, and cut through the arena like a razor blade. Any student who has passed the preliminary regional trials retains the right to an emergency physical challenge up until the moment the championship trophy is officially presented. I have not officially signed the withdrawal paperwork with the registrar's office. My entry fee was paid. My spot is legal. The head referee flipped furiously through a thick leather-bound rulebook on the scorer's table, looked at Dr. Vance, and gave a reluctant nod. The rule exists, Dr. Vance, the referee announced. He is technically within his rights to present an alternate machine, provided it passes safety inspection. Gabriel let out a soft, dismissive chuckle. He crossed his arms and looked at the heavy, tarp-covered object on Wyatt's trolley. It's fine, Dr. Vance. Let him present, Gabriel said, exuding supreme magnanimity for the cameras. Leo has worked hard. Even if he brought a pile of scrap metal, I want him to have his moment of closure. The crowd cheered Gabriel's sportsmanship once again. What a saint. Let the loser embarrass himself. I walked to the center of the arena floor, stopping exactly 20 feet away from Gabriel and his glistening black Prometheus robot. I reached out and yanked the tarp off my machine. The audience didn't gasp this time. They laughed. Standing on the trolley was an unpainted, skeletal contraption of raw iron, heavy copper pipes and exposed brass gears. It had no sleek composite casing, no LED lights and no digital interface screen. A massive high-pressure nitrogen tank was bolted to its spine, with heavy rubber hoses feeding into mechanical piston valves at its hips and shoulders. It looked like an industrial relic dug up from a 19th century locomotive factory. What is that ancient garbage? Someone shouted from the front row. Did he rob a train museum? Ivy let out a shrill, mocking laugh. Leo, is this your joke? You smashed your real robot because you knew you couldn't beat Gabriel, and now you bring a rusty radiator to the National Championship. I didn't look at Ivy. To me, she was already a ghost. I looked directly into Gabriel Thorne's eyes. Gabriel, I said, setting my bullhorn down and turning on my lapel mic. You said your Prometheus core is the most advanced autonomous system in human history. It is, Gabriel said proudly. Then let's test it, I said. A standard 5-minute kinetic endurance trial. My iron scrap against your god-tier machine. No simulations. No pre-programmed routines. Just raw, unassisted performance on this arena floor. Gabriel's smile widened. He smelled the ultimate public relations victory. Smashed by his own hands, Leo Reed had returned to be publicly annihilated on live national television. If that's what you need to finally accept reality, Leo, Gabriel said, raising his gold tablet. I accept. Dr. Vance slammed his gavel onto the table. The challenge is approved. 5-minute kinetic trial. 3, 2, 1. Engage. PSSSSHHHHHH. A violent plume of superheated nitrogen vapor blasted from the exhaust valves of my mechanical automaton. The heavy steel gears engaged with a deafening, metallic clack clack clack. The iron machine stepped off the trolley, its 600-pound frame shaking the concrete arena floor with every strike of its solid steel feet. Prometheus, eliminate the target, Gabriel commanded, his fingers flying across the tablet interface. The black titanium machine moved like a shadow. In a fraction of a second, Prometheus closed the 20-foot gap, its carbon fiber fist slicing through the air with a terrifying supersonic crack. Aimed straight at my automaton's central valve manifold. Clang. The impact sounded like 2 freight trains colliding head-on. The shockwave blew dust and paper debris 30 feet into the front rows of the audience. Prometheus's fist struck the solid cast-iron chest plate of my machine. But instead of shattering the primitive construct, the impact was absorbed by 4 massive internal pneumatic dampening pistons. The iron machine didn't budge an inch. Instead, the kinetic energy from Gabriel's strike was channeled directly through a series of mechanical flywheel linkages into its right arm. Wham! My automaton's crude iron fist swung in a tight, mechanical arc, catching Prometheus square in the jaw. The multi-million-dollar masterpiece was sent flying 20 feet backward, skidding across the arena floor, its polished titanium casing scraping against the concrete in a shower of brilliant orange sparks. The entire arena gasped in absolute horror. What? Gabriel stumbled back, his eyes wide in disbelief. How did a mechanical linkage generate that much counter-torque? You don't know, do you? I said, walking slowly behind my machine. You don't understand how kinetic load distribution works without an AI predictive model to calculate it for you. Shut up, Gabriel snarled, his mask of composure slipping for the first time. He jammed his thumb into the tablet's emergency boost toggle. Prometheus. Overclocked to 80%. Maximum agile strike. The blue veins on the Prometheus robot turned into a violent, pulsing purple. It leaped to its feet, moving in an erratic, blinding blur, circling my iron machine like a predatory wasp, striking from the left, the right, the rear. Clang. Bang. Crunch. Dents appeared on my machine's outer iron plating. Hydraulic fluid sprayed from a severed secondary line. But my automaton remained an immovable fortress, its purely mechanical clockwork brain calculating nothing, predicting nothing, simply reacting to pressure differentials through pure fluid dynamics. Every time Prometheus struck, the mechanical flywheels inside my machine spun faster, storing the kinetic energy of Gabriel's own attacks like a coiled spring. Gabriel, finish it. Ivy screamed from the sidelines, clutching her head in panic as she saw the time ticking down. For minutes elapsed. Die, you piece of trash. Gabriel screamed, completely losing his mind in front of 40 million viewers. He pressed the red emergency button on his tablet. Overclock 100%. Unrestricted. Kinetic output. The core of the Prometheus robot let out a high-pitched, ear-splitting scream. The violet light inside its chest turned into a blinding, unstable white glare. The internal electromagnetic coils reached maximum induction, generating over 5,000 foot-pounds of instantaneous torque. It wound up its fist for a final, lethal strike aimed at my head. And that was the exact millisecond the mathematical paradox triggered. ZT. A sharp, Electric snapping sound echoed from deep within Prometheus's chest. The robot froze mid-stride. Its right arm, cocked back for the strike, began to vibrate with violent, uncontrollable spasms. The harmonic resonance dampening loop, the one I had deliberately excluded from the synthesized neural blueprint, failed completely. The electromagnetic field inverted. The massive electrical current, unable to vent through the drive motors, surged straight back into the main logic board. What's happening? Gabriel shrieked, furiously tapping the glass screen of his tablet, which was now flashing red with critical error codes. Prometheus. Reboot. Execute Command Alpha. Move. Move. The robot didn't move. Instead, its vocal synthesizer, overridden by the hard-coded emergency diagnostics routine, began broadcasting in a loud, flat, computerized voiceover. The stadium's PA system. Critical system fault. Harmonic resonance collapse. Unencrypted core telemetry. Dump initiated. Source author. Read_Leo_07_synapse_stream. Downlink relay. Thorne_biomedical_neural_receiver_Mac_48:2F. 90. The words echoed through the silent arena with absolute, terrifying clarity. On the 4 colossal jumbotron screens hanging above the center of the stadium, the video feed of the match was suddenly replaced by a massive scrolling wall of raw source code, real-time telemetry logs, and timestamped digital certificates. At the very top of the screens, displayed in 50-foot-tall glowing white letters, was the complete audit trail. Project Prometheus, original schematic created, 3:14 a.m., read residence. Lab. Telemetry intercept node, device ID Synapse Echo 09 registered to IV. Rivers. Automated fabrication timestamp, 3:42 a.m., Thorne Tech Advanced. Manufacturing facility. Primary system signature, Leo Reed, Neural Core Algorithm v4. 2. The entire arena stared up at the screens in stunned, paralyzed silence. 40 million viewers across the globe watched the undeniable, cryptographically verified proof of the greatest scientific theft in modern history scroll down the screen line by line. Gabriel's tablet slipped from his sweat-slicked fingers, shattering against the concrete floor. No. Gabriel whimpered, falling to his knees. No. It's a virus. He hacked my system. He framed me. A virus? I asked, stepping out from behind my iron machine, holding a wireless microphone. The file on those screens contains cryptographic security keys registered to the United States Patent and Trademark Office under my name 4 years ago, I said, my voice echoing like the judgment of an executioner. Every single design you ever claimed to invent, the bipedal stabilizer from freshman year, the fluid dynamic servo from our sophomore project, the hex spider from yesterday, and the Prometheus core you stand beside right now, was transmitted directly from a covert neural tap illegally implanted into my spine by your father's foundation. I pointed toward the VIP box. Dr. Vance. General Marcus. Check your private regulatory terminals right now. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Department of Justice, and the Food and Drug Administration have just received the complete server mirror of Thorne Biomedical's unauthorized human experimentation records. At that exact moment, the heavy glass doors of the VIP mezzanine burst open. A dozen armed federal agents in tactical vests, flanked by uniformed state police officers, marched onto the arena floor, their weapons drawn and badges flashing under the bright stadium lights. The lead federal agent, a tall woman with a grim expression and a badge reading FBI Cyber and Intellectual Property Division, strode directly toward the center of the ring. Gabriel Thorne? Ivy Rivers, the agent announced, her voice booming through the stadium. Ivy let out a shrill, hysterical shriek and turned to run toward the tunnel. Exit. 2 state troopers immediately stepped into her path, grabbing her arms and forcing her down against the cold concrete floor. The designer dress she had worn to show off was torn against the rough ground. Her manicured hands were violently pinned behind her back as the steel handcuffs clicked shut. Let go of me, Ivy wailed, her makeup running down her face in ugly black streaks. I didn't do anything. It was Gabriel. Gabriel gave me the money. He promised to buy me an apartment in Manhattan. He forced me to keep the transmitter near Leo. Leo, tell them. Leo, I loved you. You know I loved you. I stood 10 feet away, watching her writhe in the dirt. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel satisfaction. I only felt the deep, serene weight of justice finally arriving after 2 long lifetimes. Ivy, I said quietly, looking down at her. You signed my life support termination papers without blinking an eye. You don't know what the word love means. Ivy froze, her bloodshot eyes widening in sheer, unadulterated terror as she realized that somehow, impossibly, I knew everything. The federal agents surrounded Gabriel Thorne. Gabriel was still kneeling on the ground, staring blankly at the pulverized, sparking remains of the Prometheus robot. The golden boy of Silicon Valley looked like an empty, hollow shell, his designer suit covered in hydraulic fluid and dirt. Gabriel Thorne, the federal agent stated, reading from a digital warrant. You are under arrest for federal corporate espionage, felony wire fraud, conspiracy to commit intellectual property theft, and aggravated assault involving illegal, non-consensual biomedical cybernetic implantation. My father, Gabriel whispered, his voice cracking into a ragged, pathetic sob. My father will call the governor. You can't touch me. I am a genius. I am the future of this country. Your father, Arthur Thorne, was arrested at his corporate headquarters 15 minutes ago, the agent replied coldly, hauling Gabriel to his feet by his collar. Thorne Industries' assets have been frozen by federal court order. You have the right to remain silent. I strongly advise you to use it. The crowd in the stadium, the very same crowd that had cheered Gabriel and booed me 20 minutes earlier, erupted into a deafening roar of fury and indignation. Water bottles, trash, and crumpled promotional flyers rained down on Gabriel and Ivy as the police dragged them through the security tunnel. Thief! Scumbag! Give Leo his prize. Dr. Julian Vance stood up from the judge's table, his face red with profound shame. He walked down the steps, stepped onto the arena floor, and picked up the $5 million championship trophy. He walked over to where Wyatt and I stood beside our battered, smoking iron machine. Dr. Vance extended his hands, holding out the trophy, and bowed his head in a deep, humble apology. Mr. Reed, Dr. Vance said, his voice trembling through the broadcast microphone. On behalf of the National Academy of Sciences, the judging panel, and the global engineering community, we owe you a debt of honor we can never fully repay. You are the undisputed, true champion. The 10,000 spectators in the arena rose to their feet in a thunderous, shaking standing ovation that lasted for 5 straight minutes. I looked at the heavy gold trophy, then turned and looked at Wyatt, who was wiping tears of joy from his eyes with his oil-stained sleeve. I didn't take the trophy right away. I walked over to the front row of the stands, where my parents sat, alive, healthy, and weeping tears of pure pride and vindication. I reached over the railing, pulled them both into a tight, fierce embrace, and felt the warm sunlight of a brand new day breaking through the glass dome above. The nightmare was over. The shadow was broken. And this time, my future was written in unyielding, incorruptible iron.